So my name is Scott Waxman. I'm an attorney from the Philadelphia area. I was treated for colon cancer, stage 3 colon cancer. So, I'm a very active attorney. I work for one of the largest law firms in the world. Very stressful job, very busy, very active, outdoors, hiking, just a very active kind of person. And this came out of the blue. It was a complete shock. I was in Paris for the Olympics, had a great time, and I came home, and within about a week of being home, I experienced difficulties going to the bathroom. And being that I was then 58, kind of maybe just chalked it up to, well, we're all getting older, your digestive system doesn't work the way it used to. Just give it a few days, take a few supplements and everything will be okay. And, the blood wasn't going away and it wasn't getting any easier. And I called my doctor and he scheduled an emergency colonoscopy. And my expectation was that I was going to be fine and I was going to be told maybe go on some medicine or something, your digestive system's just not working right. But the gastroenterologist came out and said, you have cancer. That was just a complete shock to me. It took a while for it to be staged. It wasn't definitively staged until after my colon resection. So I did have a colon resection about 7 weeks after initial diagnosis. That was just kind of due to scheduling and getting in to see a surgeon and all of those kinds of things. I had a colon resection. That went very well. The surgeon felt like he got everything that he could. He took 21 lymph nodes and cancer was found in 9 of them. Apparently because there were 9 as opposed out of the 21, that made it high risk stage 3, not stage 4, but high risk stage 3. I then met with an oncologist, very well-respected cancer center in my area, found the go-to guy for colorectal cancer, had a meeting with him, and he essentially told me I needed 6 months of standard chemotherapy because I was stage 3. And it was really when we were sitting down and going over the side effects of the chemo that it kind of began to hit me. And he ran through the litany of side effects, and one of them was neuropathy. I have existing neuropathy in my feet from a back injury many, many years ago. It's manageable and it doesn't significantly impact my life, but the possibility that my neuropathy could worsen as a result of chemotherapy was something I wasn't even aware of. And so I brought to the oncologist's attention that I have existing neuropathy and asked her, is there anything we can do to try to mitigate it getting worse or whatever? And his response to me was, it came across somewhat cavalier, but I think this is just their mindset, was if it gets to the point where you can't walk, we can make an adjustment to your chemotherapy. And I sat there and I thought to myself, if it has to get to the place where I can't walk, that we would then consider making a change to my therapy. That seemed off to me. But nevertheless, he was the go-to guy. I didn't really have any other choices. And so I, signed on the dotted line. The interesting thing is I've known about Envita. I've known about Envita for probably a decade or more because I've heard the commercials and I hear Dino Prado, try our precision second opinion. Many times I heard that. And it's surprising to me that when I was diagnosed, Envita didn't come to mind. I think the reason it didn't come to mind was because in my mind, it seemed to me like Envita was a place of last resort, a Hail Mary kind of place that you went to after absolutely everything else failed and after they told you there are just no other options whatsoever. But I completed my first round of chemotherapy with the oncologist at home, had a lot of side effects. That was only round 1, and I had 11 more to go. I did experience a slight worsening of the neuropathy just after a single round. So what was going to happen after 11 more? That was what really scared me. Being active and being outside and being able to go for hikes, I live for that. And to think that I would lose the ability to potentially walk because I'd be in debilitating pain was just a horrifying thought to me. And I was out walking my dog on a very cold day in early January of this year, 2025, and I was listening to satellite radio, and an ad for Envita came on the air, and I feel like somebody was trying to send me a sign. I called my sister because I was out walking the dog, and I said, hey, could you, because though I'd heard of Envita and I'd heard the commercials, it always seemed very interesting to me. I'd never done any research because it didn't pertain to me. So I asked my sister, can you go to this website and look them up? And she did, and she was just reading things to me off the website. And after about 10 minutes, she said, I think you need to call these people. And I did. That was a Thursday. 24 hours later, by Friday, I had decided I was coming to Envita. I participated in a Zoom call where lots of questions and answers were exchanged, including many of my own, and it just sounded like the right place to me. I'm accustomed to concierge care at home. I have a concierge doctor. This to me felt like concierge chemotherapy. I mean, that's kind of how I've described it to, my family and friends. But what I was most impressed about was the customized nature of the treatments. At home, I'm a stage 3 colon cancer patient. I will receive the exact same protocol as every other stage 3 colon cancer patient. Doesn't matter what their situation is, we're all going to get the exact same thing. Just logically, that doesn't make sense. We're different human beings with different DNA. Some things will work better for the person next to me than might work for me, even though we have the exact same cancer. And when I learned more about Envita, the fact that your tissue sample is tested against every available chemotherapy drug on the market, the notion that the standard protocol might not be the best for my cancer was just mind-blowing to me. Why wouldn't everybody do that? Why wouldn't you always want to know what the best chemo is? But there were a lot of other things that came up on my report that are going to be part of my home therapies, supplements that showed considerable efficacy in killing my cancer. Not just colon cancer, but my cancer. Having that type of feedback and information was just really just so important to me. And then speaking to the neuropathy, which was my biggest concern, I learned that Envita, as part of their protocols, does treatments, generally speaking, to protect nerves from neuropathy. And so in my case, I was able to speak with my doctor and get additional treatments every week just to give the nerves in my feet that extra measure of protection. And I can say, knock on wood, that my neuropathy did not worsen during my course of chemo here. It didn't miraculously disappear either, but it didn't worsen. And not worsening was my goal. A doctor actually listening to me, what my fears are, what my concerns are. At home, the oncologist, this was just not part of the discussion, and it wouldn't have been part of the discussion. And I haven't even mentioned how appealing it was to learn that at Envita, the dosing is microdoses of chemotherapy. Why is it microdoses of chemotherapy? Because Envita uses a very innovative process, taking advantage of the fact that cancer loves sugar. I mean, I'm sure the Envita doctors would describe it slightly differently, but as a layperson, that's how I understand it. And the result of that is that they are using far less potent doses of chemotherapy. In my particular case, I was receiving 12% of the full dose that I was getting at home. Well, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to conclude that if I'm getting 12% less poison, I should have greatly reduced side effects as a result of that. All I can say is I had some fatigue. I had a little bit of nausea, so minor. I mean, most days I would go home after treatment, just take a nap for a couple of hours. I managed to go for a hike with my dog every single day that I was in treatment. I felt good enough to go out and go for a hike every day. And that's really what I wanted. If I have a recurrence, God forbid, and I hope I don't, I'm coming back to Envita for my treatment because the treatments were manageable. I was seen, I was heard, I was treated as a patient. My oncologist at home, very kind person, but at best, all he was going to do was treat my cancer. Envita treated me as a whole patient. So knowing that I was only receiving 12% doses of these medications here in the targeted way, which, according to peer-reviewed studies, is 35 times more effective than traditional chemotherapy, that gave me great confidence in not using 100% strength, which could have very damaging effects to my body. So my overall experience here has been, I feel so grateful and blessed to have found this place. The staff is so incredibly kind. They greet you by name every day you walk in the door. And I know that seems silly, but cancer is almost like a faceless disease. You feel like one of just millions of people walking around with this disease. But when it's personalized that way, it really makes a difference. And I've heard a lot of patients say, it's so nice to be greeted by name when you walk in the door. It just makes you feel like these are people who care. And the nurses and the aides were all so kind. And we laughed and we joked and we cried. It felt like family. And I've now completed my treatments, and it's weird in a way because being here on my own, I came here alone. I didn't travel with any family. My family really has been the Envita team on a daily basis. And for this past week, I've been on my own, and I've noticed like feeling something missing. And what's missing really is that connection that I had with all of the staff and the doctors and the nurses at Envita. And I'll also say the patients, because you develop strong friendships with these people. You have a common bond and you care about each other. And I've developed some friendships from here that I'll have for the rest of my life. After my first visit, my first treatment, I remember sending a blast text to all my family and friends. I am completely convinced that I made the right decision.